Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dave Bemment, and I look after an organisation called the Lighthouse Agency. And we look after celebrities who have a Christian faith that want to come out and want to share their faith with others. And this morning, our special guest is Mr. JB Gill, formerly of the very famous boy band JLS. They sold over 10 million records, had 5 number 1 hits, and won numerous music awards. And just before I introduce JB, let's have a quick glance at some of the things he was doing.
The very first time that I saw your brown eyes, your lips said hello, and I said hi, 'cause I knew right then you are the one. We are everybody in love, go put your hands up. Everybody in love, go put your hands up. Everybody in love, go put your hands up. If you're in love, put your hands up. Everybody in love.
And the winner is
JLS.
The winner of British single is Beat Again JLS!
Ladies and gentlemen, give a big hand, please, to Mr. JB Gill.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, JB. We're just going to start. Perhaps we could ask a little bit about your childhood and your teenage years, what you did and where you were.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up, I spent my early years up until about 4 or 5 in the Caribbean. And then my family, who actually had lived in the UK prior to that, we came back and I was schooled here. And I grew up in church, actually. So I was part of the primary school I went to was the Church of England school. So I went to, I was involved in the choir there and went to services as part of that church. We also went to church privately as a family as well. So I was part of a Pentecostal church that my great aunt and my mum would take me to. And also I was involved in things like the Scouts as well. So that was affiliated with the Catholic Church, and we used to do, I think, services once a month, and go along to those and bear flags and all of that sort of exciting stuff. So yeah, I had a great childhood, fond memories, and I was involved in all sorts of stuff. I was very active, and of course music played a huge part of that.
And of course, as you grew up, you were very into music. You learnt the piano, the flute. What were your musical influences as you grew up?
Well, I was heavily influenced by classical music. As you mentioned there, I started actually initially playing the recorder, which is a beginner instrument for many people who ever, those of you who've played instruments before. And that very quickly progressed to me learning the flute. And I did private lessons for that, which was, really cool. And actually that won me a place at the Centre for Musicians, which is in London, and was a real, I suppose, insight really to the world of classical music for me, which I really enjoy. One of the things that I've always loved is being part of a big team, and that's why I love being part of a choir. Yeah. Obviously being part of an orchestra or a woodwind band at the time, playing the flute and the piano and so on, and then obviously going on to being in JLS. That's one of the reasons why I've not been a solo artist, so to speak, but obviously had incredible times with the group.
And in your later teenage years, you went to university, but you studied theology, didn't you? Why that subject?
Well, I suppose, as I say, I grew up in church, so I've always enjoyed reading the Bible and learning about the stories and the different characters that you read, especially in the Old Testament. And it was always a place where I could, I guess, use my argumentative skills and debate. I liked writing. I loved English, so writing an essay wasn't a difficult task for me. And when I was going to leave school, I knew I wanted to be involved in music, but I didn't quite know the route that I would end up taking. And I just felt it was such a waste for me to not have gone to university, because I kind of, was being 18 and very headstrong and thought, oh, well, I'll make it in music somehow, some way. So I went to university, and as I say, theology was one of my strongest subjects, so I kind of chose it just because I knew I should get a pretty good mark. We won't talk about what happened when I left university, but there you go. But yeah, I loved it, and it was a great course to be involved in. I knew a lot about it, but as I say, I could also express myself creatively as well.
Well, we've got to talk about when you leave university, because then you joined JLS. How did that come about?
Yeah, well, I was at university while I met the founding member, Arishe, and it was in my second year, really, where we were working intensively together. And a vocal coach that I've been working with introduced me and said, this guy's putting a group together, get in touch with him and just see what you think. You know, you might be interested in joining the group. And to be honest, I didn't really have aspirations of being in a group or even being, as I say, a pop star. I'd always been involved and enjoyed the creative side of music, so being in the studio, you know, coming up with different songs, songwriting, things like that. And I met with Arishe, and he's, you know, a lovely guy, and we got on really well. He liked what I was doing, and he thought I'd be a great addition to the group. And I then met with the other two boys, Aston and Marvin, as well, and they said, yeah, we want you to come on board, and, you know, we're going to get into rehearsals. And to be honest, we had no idea what we were rehearsing for. There was no end goal. But we were all on the same page, and we all had the same dream, the same aspiration of making it within music. So yeah, we worked together for about a year and a half, and pretty much did the best we could to try and make it.
And why did you join, or why did you apply for X Factor?
Well, it was about a year and a half that we'd been working together, and we've been doing best unsigned act competitions, and, you know, performing at sort of local pub gigs, I guess, or you know, whatever we could kind of find that was out there. And we basically ran out of resources. You know, we knew we had something, we had talent there, but we didn't quite know what avenue to take. And we had, you know, we each had various friends, different connections that we'd met over the years within the industry, but for one reason or the other, it just didn't ever materialize. And we had lots of family members coming up to us and saying, oh, you guys should apply for the X Factor. And it was never something that we'd considered. And actually, our entry in 2008 was through a friend who habitually sort of entered every year, and I think it's more of a confidence thing than anything for them. And they said, well, you know, I'm happy not to go this year if you guys want to enter. So he gave us his application, we took it, and we saw a bit of a gap in the market, really, because every year they would put a group together, and we felt at least we'd be as good, if not better, than any group they could put together. So we went for it, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And then you came to the final.
Yes.
Yes. Let's see what happened in the final.
All I can say is the amazing JLS.
Kitchen chair, she broke your throne and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
I can tell you tonight, we have had 8 million votes. Thank you so much. And the people of Britain have decided the winner of the X Factor 2008 is... Alexandra. Let's go and remember the gallant runners-up, boys. You've done so well. Congratulations. JLS, everyone.
How did that feel?
Well, I think you could tell I wasn't happy. I don't know what it is. I mean, even in that moment, of course, we knew that we'd accomplished so much to be on that stage and to get that far. But I just like to win. You know, and I just had it in my mind that we were going to go and we were going to go into win. And of course, I think in hindsight, we did win. It was the best thing really for us to come second because it gave us so much more freedom creatively, which is ultimately what the show is. Your show's a platform, you know, and we definitely recognise that. But as I say, in the moment, as you can see from my face, or could see from my face, I wasn't the best pleased.
Because you weren't tied up with contractually having to do all the X Factor stuff, were you then?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the show in itself has got such a great reputation, you know, and it's changed slightly, of course, but in those days when you won the show, there was a huge commitment. That song that we sang there was kind of the first single that you led with, and then your second single, you'd get into the studio after you'd done, you know, quite an extensive promotional run with that first single, whereas obviously we didn't have to do that. So our focus was on the music we wanted to create from, you know, pretty much from the get-go. And we were still unsure, actually, at that time, when, you know, on the final night, whether we were going to be signed or not, because Simon had decided that year that he didn't want to sign all of the finalists, he just wanted to sign the winner. So we still had a bit of work to do, but, you know, we were confident in our abilities, of course, and, you know, we had a lot of people supporting us and, you know, willing us on.
But despite that, you went from zero to hero. Your life changed dramatically, and suddenly you were a pop star. What was that like? How did you adjust to that?
That was hard work. I mean, there were two sides to it. Of course, I was involved in a group with friends of mine who are still friends of mine. We have a beautiful relationship, and we've built that over, you know, many years now. And it was great fun being on the road with them, traveling with them, you know, pretty much in each other's pockets, and we very much supported each other. But then at the same time, I think things progressed so quickly that there wasn't much time to think about anything else. You know, it's very much just go, 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 go. And, you know, it's an incredible machine, actually. People I don't think realise just how full on it can be. And especially, you know, obviously at that time we weren't quite at the top, but, you know, we were on our way to the top of the, you know, the pop industry, which in itself is a very scary and busy and full on industry.
And during that time, what happened about your faith?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because it was always something that was in the background within my life. It's been a huge formative part of my life. You know, as I say, I grew up reading the Bible and praying and, you know, going to Bible studies and being involved in church life. And for one reason or another, I think in my teenage years, that kind of slipped back a bit. You know, I didn't attend churches regularly. I think the busyness of life sometimes can get on top of you, and, you know, especially as a teenager individually, but then also within family life, you know, there's lots of challenges and lots of things which come up which can impact that. But as I say, I always had it, I suppose, as part of my life. And at that time, you know, I wouldn't say that I necessarily lived as a Christian. I certainly didn't talk about it very openly, but you know, there's a saying in Proverbs, actually, which says to train a child in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And I believe that's very much true to my life at that time and, you know, throughout the whole of my life. Because of kind of the understanding that I had growing up, it was something that was very, very much a part of my life and not too far away from me. And of course, as time went on, you know, I came back round almost full circle really to that lifestyle and having, you know, Jesus Christ as more at the center of my life rather than kind of just a bit that I'd tapped into.
So how did that change then? And JLS disbanded after 5 years. You went out at the top, actually, didn't you? You know, you didn't sort of wait till you were, you know, people weren't buying your records. But you went out at the top, but then how did that affect you in terms of your faith? Because, as you say, it had been rather on the back burner. Was there something suddenly you realised, or was it a very gradual thing, your awareness of God and your faith and where you should be?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few different trigger points, really. One of the ones that stands out to me the most while I was still on tour with the boys, we had a show in Glasgow, and I didn't realise at the time, but some of the fans that we had in Glasgow, you know, I mean, hardcore fans that you see everywhere. They come rain, snow, shine, everything, they're there. They came to meet us after a gig, and they gave me a present. They said, "Don't open this present until you get to your hotel room." So naturally, I was worried. I thought, what does this mean? Have they, found a way to put themselves into the present to then pop up in my hotel room? Very worried. But no, they, I thought to myself, okay, yep, I'll respect their wishes. I won't open it till I'm in my room. I got to my hotel room and opened up this present, and they had a note there just saying that, they felt really moved to give me this present, and, they didn't know how I'd react, but they hoped that I wouldn't, take any offense, and they're really sorry if I was offended, but they just felt that they really needed to give me this present. And I read the letter, lovely letter, and then I opened the present, and it was a Bible. And obviously, as I say, with my background, growing up in church and so on, it wasn't astonishing for me to receive a Bible. I had many myself at home, but I think it was the significance, really, of the present. And the fact that these girls had put themselves out, really, to give me this present. And of course, they'd explained in the letter that they were following what they felt was a calling from God to give me this present, and really it was a trigger kind of, as I say, for me to start thinking more about that and the importance of that in my life, and kind of where I was as an individual with my own faith journey. And as time went on, I was with my girlfriend we've been together 11 years and married now 5 years, and it was just around the time where I was thinking about getting married, how what I wanted to stand for as an individual, what I wanted our lives to, both of our lives to kind of represent, and obviously children subsequently and so on. And so, as I say, I think there were a few things which kind of just gave me that prompt and said, okay, Jonathan, what do you want to do? What are you about? What do you stand for? When people ask you, what are you going to say? So that's what happened.
And in your walk with God, especially since, you sort of came back to him, as it were, in 2013 onwards, what one thing has helped you most in your life in terms of your Christian walk?
It's hard to pick just one thing. I think it's really important to have relationship with somebody. So and you see that example really in the Gospels. Jesus was very much the point figure, and he had disciples. And, discipleship is a huge thing within the church, which I think is incredibly important. And you can call it having a mentor or, being a disciple or whatever it is. It's still the same principle, I believe. And really, it's just having that relationship with someone perhaps more experienced than you, whether it's your pastor or whether it's a leader, whether it's someone who, heads your house group or something, that you can actually have conversation with and discuss concerns about and ask questions of. And it's very much a personal journey, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with asking for advice, asking for help, and really from a spiritual source. So for me, I found that has been incredibly helpful, and then just having the disciplines of reading your Bible and praying every day is very, very difficult. Anybody who says they've mastered it is lying. It's tough, and especially for me personally in life, we're traveling a lot, having really busy times of work and so on. It's really, really hard, but it's something that I try and do. If I'm at home with my wife, we try and do together. I most certainly do it with the children before bed and things like that. So it's incredibly important, and I don't think sometimes we don't realize how much of an impact it can have and does have, especially behind the scenes when you're not really thinking about it. And as I say, it's something that I've always come back to, even if for whatever reason it's been difficult to maintain.
Well, our time is virtually gone now, but if you've got a question for JB, he's going to be answering questions at the Italian lunch. So if you have a question, we ask you to write it down, see one of the organisers or one of the ministers here, and you can ask your question to JB about anything. The harder the better, you say, at lunch. But one final question I just want to ask you, JB. There may be people here this morning that perhaps were a bit like you, that they've got a sort of faith, believe in God, but it's all a bit on the back burner. They're just jogging along. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say, firstly, you're in the right place, and we've spent a bit of time with some of the leadership team here, and, they're lovely people, very welcoming, and I can see already at the back, there are lots of different leaflets about information you can find, but as I say, it's about relationships, so find somebody who is part of this church, speak to them, it doesn't have to be too in-depth, you don't have to reveal, everything about your life, but I think it's just making that first step, really, and saying that this is something that I want to pursue, can you help me to do it? And I believe it's a great starting place.
JB, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm thank you. JB Gill.
Thank you.